Alright everyone, welcome back to another video. Today's a little different. I wanted to do a review on the Sony FX30, right? Now this camera isn't new. It's been out for I think 3 or 4 years at this point. And it's my workhorse. It's my main camera. In fact, I love it so much I have two of them, right? So there's this one and the one I'm shooting on right now. So the Sony FX30 is a pretty decent camera. It's a video-centered camera. Now, there are tons of cameras out there that are hybrid cameras that do great in both photography and videography. This isn't necessarily that camera. This is mostly centered around videos, right? Video production. Yes, it does take pictures. It does have a mode that allows you to take photos, but it's not optimized for shooting photos. I have shot photos on it and it looks good, but it's not its preference, right? So there's a couple of reasons I love this camera. I'm gonna kind of talk about why I love this camera, and before I get into it, I want to make a disclaimer. Sony isn't paying me to review this camera. No one is paying me to make this video. I just wanted to make it because it's a great camera. I love it, and I think there's people out there who are looking to purchase this camera. They're wondering, should I purchase this camera in 2025? There's rumors about the Sony FX30 version 2 or the FX3 version 2, and there's always the what if I buy it and a new version comes out. Well, there's always that risk. The truth is, this camera, if I were to buy another camera today, if I needed a third video camera today, I would buy the FX30 because it suits for most of what I do. For about 95% of what I do, this camera is a great camera. Now, this review might not be extremely technical. I will leave that to the professionals like Gerald Undone to do the very detailed spec sheet and tests. I'm going to talk about it from a solely real world videographer, cinematographer use case, right? So the first thing I love about this camera is its versatility. It does well in a lot of video production, in different scenarios in video production work, corporate interviews, podcasts, live streams, just about any kind of talking head video. It does great even if you're doing narrative work. It's an amazing camera. That includes things like that includes if you're going to put it on a tripod, if you're going to go handheld, if you want a handheld rig, this is a great camera. If you want to put it on a gimbal, strip it down a little bit, and tripod sliders, all that kind of stuff. It's a pretty versatile camera, right? The next thing I love about this camera, which probably goes for a lot of Sony cameras, are its autofocus, right? Just about any Sony camera in the last 4 years has really solid autofocus. Most people will tell you, oh, you don't use autofocus in the professional industry. Yeah, you do. We do use autofocus. Are we going to always say autofocus is the right thing to use? No. But in a lot of scenarios, in a lot of what we're doing, autofocus works just fine. If there's not a whole ton of movement, if I'm doing corporate events and there's movement and I'm on a gimbal and it's not focusing on the right part of the screen or the right part of the frame, I can tap to focus on the screen and it holds on to that area. So autofocus is great on this camera. The next thing is the 10-bit 4:2 codec. That gives you a lot of leverage in post if you're shooting log and you want to have some leverage to color correct and to color grade. 4:2 10-bit S-Log3 is a phenomenal canvas to really create the look that you're going for. I'm gonna be honest with you, 90% of the time I take a LUT and I put on that S-Log3 image and it looks great. you know, slight color correction, exposure and color and so on, and it's great. So it's right out the camera with a LUT, it's good to go. S-Cinetone is also a great color profile. I use that in scenarios where I need to send off the footage right away, and the client wants a Rec 709 color space on the files. So that is a phenomenal reason to use this camera. Another thing that maybe a lot of people don't talk about, but it's a very important part for me, because I'm getting paid to shoot, right? And so one of the most scary things to say to a client is, I lost the footage, right? Or the card got corrupted. So it has dual SD card slots, right? And you can record simultaneously to both SD cards, or you can record, you know, one card fills up and the next one it starts recording to the next card. And it, for most of the recording codecs, a V60 card will actually work. If you're gonna go with the highest bitrate shooting in 4K 120p, you're gonna need a V90. Or I think there's one scenario where not even the V90 will work. Maybe it's the all intra codec 4K 120. I think that will require a CF Express card. I have never put a CF Express card in my camera. I've always used SD cards, V60s and V90s, and for all the things that I use it for and I do, those have been perfect. Another thing that's really important for me is the ergonomics of this camera. I'm talking about the body itself. The button layouts and the dial layouts are perfect for most of my quick adjustments that I need to make. I have just about every button mapped precisely to do what I want it to do. If I want to step up from the base ISO to the highest, for the low base ISO to the high base ISO, it's one button. If I want to change white balance, it's one button. If I want to adjust f-stop, it's a dial at the front. If I want to adjust ISO, dial at the back. If I want to adjust shutter speed, it's the front dial. It's like every single button has its place. And this is not necessarily specific to the Sony FX30 or the FX3 because they actually share the same body. But a lot of Sony cameras and a lot of other camera manufacturers have those, you know, kind of layouts. But for video-centered work, the buttons and the dials really are really well thought out with this camera. Now, I just mentioned, you know, high bass and low bass. That's one of the things I also like about this camera. It has dual bass ISOs, right? So there's the low bass, which is 800 ISO, and this is when you're shooting S-Log3. Low bass is 800 and high bass is 2500. I'll be honest with you. Sometimes I wish that high bass ISO was a little higher, maybe 6400 would be amazing. I know the FX3 high bass ISO is 12,800. So it'd be great if it was a little higher. And that's probably one of the cons, but I'll get to that in a second. But having that flexibility to jump from two of the bass ISOs and still maintain a clean, grain-free or minimal grain image is a game changer for this camera. So definitely love it. It's one of my favorite features. Another important feature in this camera is the IBIS, the in-body image stabilization. It's pretty good in the standard format. In the active format, it has a little jello effect in some scenarios where it's almost like the sensor is trying to hold on to a stable image, but it kind of gives you a jello effect. I don't know if you've ever seen that, but in the active profile, when you're doing handheld stuff, that's kind of where I've seen it the most. But if I'm on a gimbal, I'm usually in standard mode. In most cases, I'm in standard mode. If you go in active stabilization, it does crop in. I think it's a 1.3 crop on top of the fact that it's already a crop sensor. So this is that's one of the features I like, is that it does have in-body image stabilization. I'm not always using the digital version, which is the active, but having some form of in-body stabilization is very important. Now, probably one of the more important features for me is the fact that it's active. It has active cooling, so it has a fan. It's very quiet in most scenarios. I have actually never heard the fan. I know it's on, and I'll put my hand beside the vent and I feel the fan moving, but I've actually never heard it. So it's never an issue for me when recording audio that I'm worried about the fan in the camera. It's never been a thing for me. But having that fan, I've shot outside in the bright sunlight, you know, in like, I'm in Jamaica, so it's hot, right? So direct sunlight, and I've never gotten a message that the camera is overheating. I mean, I've set it to the high temperature tolerance for the camera, but I've never gotten a warning that this camera is getting hot. If I touch the camera, it's warm. It's never hot. Never feels like it's an issue. And I've done long take stuff. I've done conferences and events where I'm actually recording 2-3 hours straight. I'm more worried about a memory card filling up than the camera overheating, and that is a huge peace of mind to have with your camera when you're shooting, you know, high paid projects, when you're shooting for high stakes scenarios where you don't get a second take. If you're shooting weddings outdoors and it's hot and all that kind of stuff, you don't want to worry about, is my camera going to overheat? I've done a shoot with other videographers where they're shooting on another camera brand. I'm not throwing shade on any other camera brand, because pretty much every camera brand right now is doing great stuff. But I've shot in scenarios where, you know, another videographer he has to turn his camera off every take just to make sure it doesn't get too hot. He has to take the battery out when he's not using it just to make it keep cool down and all that kind of stuff. I've never had to worry about that with this camera. One of the other features about it, this is probably the last thing I'll touch on, is the top handle. Now the top handle doesn't necessarily you don't have to buy it with a top handle. My first FX30 I purchased I did not purchase it with the top handle, and I actually thought, oh, you know, I have a recorder, I have an XLR recorder, I probably won't use that top handle very often. And I'll be honest with you, when I purchased the second FX30 with the top handle, I regretted not having a top handle sooner. Having an XLR input straight into your camera with dials that you can customize real quick, with that also has, so it's 2 XLR inputs plus a 3.5 millimeter input, and it's also in the shape of a handle that also helps with, you know, holding and stabilization. That was actually more, it was more of a convenience than I thought it would be. So I definitely would recommend, if you are doing professional corporate work where you do use XLR mics, especially boom mics or shotgun mics, it's a great feature to have. Even if I'm actually recording into a separate recorder, my FX3 32-bit float, that's the only thing I don't like about the top handle, is that it doesn't have 32-bit float in the top handle audio interface. I wish it did. I also wish the handle itself was a little sturdier, but that is actually, you know, I got the small rig accessories that kind of helps to strengthen that handle, and it's been fine so far. So let me talk about the cons real quick. And the cons to be honest, it's dependent on the kind of work you do. 95% of the work I do, I have some level of control over the lighting. So I'm bringing artificial lights, and so I'm controlling lighting. And so low light scenarios is not a huge, it's not a huge it doesn't make a huge difference for me. Not to say that the camera doesn't do okay in low light. It does pretty well in low light, especially with where cameras are coming from. But we do have to bear in mind it is a crop sensor, so it's not full frame. Full frame sensors do let in a little more light. Plus, it doesn't have the high base ISO like its bigger brother, the FX3, which is 12,800. So it does perform a bit worse in low light scenarios. But that, again, that's depending on what you're comparing it to and depending on what you're doing. I have shot this camera in low light events where, you know, it's like dark, moody, indoor type thing. And with a fast enough lens, like a f1.4 or f1.2, I actually will get the amount of light that I need with the high base ISO of 2500. So it's, again, it's not the GOAT as it relates to low light, but it can handle itself pretty well. The other con, which is again about the crop sensor, is if you're shooting real estate, it's a crop sensor, so obviously it's not as wide of a field of view, and so you might find a little difficult if you're doing real estate in small spaces and you're trying to capture the whole space in a wide shot. You might have a little bit of issues there, but again, I do know videographers who use this same camera in their real estate work and they get great results. But there is that factor to bear in mind, that it is a cropped sensor as it relates to a full frame, right? So you do get a wider field of view with full frame. Like a 16 millimeter on a full frame will give you a really nice wide shot of a room. For the FX30 to get that same view you'd need like a 10 millimeter, 11 millimeter lens, which does usually have a little bit of distortion around the edges, but in most cases it's fine. Again, this is one of my favorite cameras. I have no huge complaints about it. I have done so much work with the FX30. I have gotten so much great reviews from clients who love the image, they love how it looks, they love the color and all that kind of stuff. And so I'm happy. It does make me happy. I enjoy shooting with this camera, and that's also something you have to bear in mind. A camera isn't always just about its specs. It's about its use cases for you. It's about how it makes you feel to use that piece of tool. It is a tool, but doesn't mean you can't enjoy using it. And I do enjoy using the FX30. Are there better cameras out there? Yeah. Are there quirks about it that I wish I could have a better piece of tool? Yes. But more times than not, I'm happy with this camera. It has never failed me in terms of having any glitch or any issues, knocking on wood. It's never had any major issues on a set that I've had to restart it or corrupted a card or overheated or anything like that. I put this camera to work, it works, it gets the jobs done, and I'm a happy camper. So Sony FX30 in 2025, would I recommend it? I'd say there's very few cameras out there that beat this camera right now as it relates to value and price. So that's it.